Hello, and welcome to Pre-Employment, Behavioral, and Personality Questions and Testing, brought to you by the Ohio Means Jobs Geauga County Career Center. As of July 15th, 2022, the Ohio Means Jobs Geauga County Career Center will be located in the new Geauga County Administration Building at 12611 Ravenwood Drive, Chardon, Ohio 44024. My name is Lisa Sprouse, and I will be your presenter today. I am a part-time Geauga County Job and Family Services Career Center instructor employed through Auburn Career Center. I also have 25 plus years of experience in employment screening and recruiting. Today we will be discussing pre-employment, behavioral, and personality testing questions. According to a survey from the Society of Human Resource Management and Mercer, 67% of HR professionals are using personality tests and pre-employment testing to vet candidates in the hiring process. That's compared to less than 50% in 2010 per research firm Aberdeen Group. A personality test is an assessment used by employers to help find a candidate whose character traits are best suited for a specific position. The pre-employment testing is designed to reveal particular aspects of a candidate's personality and estimate the likelihood that he or she will excel in such a position. First, we will discuss pre-employment tests. What is pre-employment testing and why is it used by an employer? So pre-employment testing is a centralized method to acquire and document information about you during the hiring process. A few of these tests can detail if you can perform tasks effectively in the workplace, and some employers may have a pre-employment test be a requirement before they can even interview you. So passing these tests then advances you into the next stage of the hiring process. Employers use these tests to know if you're the right fit for the specific job opening. And while you learn about the different types of pre-employment tests, this will help you then prepare for the steps you need to get a job that aligns with your career path. So let's talk about why employers use pre-employment testing and what some of those types of testing may look like. They use this testing to accelerate the hiring process. So this will help them quickly narrow down the number of applicants they're trying to hire. They test for an applicant's skill set. So these will see how your skills match the requirements within the job description. They also look at this to increase the quality of interviews. So by gathering the information on your background, they can then use these results from the test to then ask you specific questions related to your skills and work experience. So now let's review some of the tests that you may encounter either during your job application process or during the interview process. There are job knowledge tests that will identify your knowledge about the job you're applying for. Integrity tests are objective tests that employers can use to help measure the reliability of applicants. There are cognitive ability tests. So these ask questions about your mental capacity to work in a position. Personality tests then help indicate to the employer if you fit within the company's culture and if your personality could potentially lead to an increase in productivity. There are emotional intelligence tests, so this will analyze your relationship building skills and your knowledge of emotions. So having high emotional intelligence can then show an employer how you can diffuse conflicts and relieve the anxiety of coworkers if they're frustrated or disappointed. There are skills assessment tests. So this provides an overview of your soft and hard skills. So employers test for these skills typically once they're in the later stage of the hiring process to understand who they might want to hire. And then there are physical ability tests. So this will feature your strength and stamina and will also reveal if you're capable of performing in roles that would require physical work like a firefighter or a police officer. An organization that makes good hiring decisions tends to have a higher productivity and lower turnover rate, which positively affects the bottom line. Hiring the wrong people can have a negative impact on employee morale and management time, and it can waste valuable training and development dollars. So pre-employment testing and new screening tools and technology can really help HR professionals minimize hiring time and select the most qualified individual who best fits the organization. So now let's look at behavioral interviews. Behavioral interview questions require candidates to share examples of specific situations they've been in where they had to use certain skills. According to the Society for Human Resource Management, the answers, quote, should provide variable, concrete evidence as to how a candidate has dealt with issues in the past, unquote. So in short, it's a way to let your past work performance prove what you're capable of doing in the future for this potential employer. So let's first start with the STAR method. What is the STAR method? What does it stand for? And why is it used? So the STAR interview technique offers a straightforward format that you can use to answer behavioral interview questions. Those prompts that ask you to provide a real-life example of how you handled a certain kind of situation at work in the past. STAR is an acronym that stands for Situation, Task, Action, Result. So situation is where you're going to set the scene and give the necessary details of your example. Task is where you're going to describe what your responsibility was in that situation. Action is going to be where you explain exactly what steps you took to address it. And result is where you're going to share what outcome was of your actions achieved. So by using these four components to shape your anecdote, it's much easier to share a focused answer. We'll cover some of the types of questions that you may run into during the course of your interviewing that you are able to use the STAR method that we just talked about with. So first off, teamwork. So some questions like these, you'll want a story that illustrates your ability to work with others under challenging circumstances. So think team conflict, difficult project constraints, clashing personalities. So, just a few of the questions that might be asked of you is to talk about a time when you had to work closely with someone whose personality was very different from yours, or describe a time when you struggled to build a relationship with someone important, and how did you eventually overcome that? Another will be client-facing skills. So if the role you're interviewing for works with clients, so maybe a sales role, business development role, even somebody, say, in banking, definitely be ready for one of these. So find an example of a time where you successfully represented your company or team and delivered exceptional customer service. So a question could be, tell me about a time when you made sure a customer was pleased with your service, or describe a time when it was especially important to make a good impression on a client, and how did you go about doing so? So how about another, ability to adapt? So times of turmoil are finally good for something. Just a little chuckle on the side. So think of a recent work crisis that you successfully navigated. Even if your navigation didn't feel successful at the time, find a lesson or a silver lining you took from the situation. So, tell me about the first job you've ever had. What did you do to learn the ropes? Or describe a time when your team or company was undergoing some change. How did that impact you, and how did you adapt? So now another would be time management skills. So in other words, get ready to talk about a time you juggled multiple responsibilities, organized it all perfectly, and completed everything before the deadline. So a good question may be, describe a long-term project that you managed. How did you keep everything moving along in a timely manner? Or tell me about a time you had to be very strategic in order to meet all your top priorities. So now comes communication skills. You probably won't have any trouble thinking of a story for a communication question, since it's not only part of most jobs, it's part of everyday life. However, the thing to remember here is to also talk about your thought process or preparation. So give me an example of a time when you were able to successfully persuade someone to see things your way at work. Tell me about a time when you had to rely on written communication to get your ideas across to your team. Finally, let's look at motivation and values. A lot of seemingly random interview questions are actual attempts to learn more about what motivates you. So questions you may get asked is, describe a time when you saw some problem and took the initiative to correct it rather than waiting for someone else to do it. Or how about, tell me about a time when you worked under close supervision or extremely loose supervision. How did you handle that? So again, we've already talked about the questions. Now let's talk about those top personality tests. So research shows that if an employee is placed in a position that doesn't match his or her personality, it often leads to lower engagement. Low employee engagement results in 21% lower productivity and about 45% higher turnover, and replacing employees is expensive. So the CALIPER profile is one of those tests that measures how an individual's personality traits correlate to his or her job performance. So the test is made up of a few different types of questions. The most common type presents you with a series of statements, and your task is to decide which statement best aligns with your viewpoint. So the CALIPER profile differs from other personality tests in that it examines both positive and negative qualities, thus providing the full picture of a candidate. The MYERS-BRIGGS type indicator. So this is one of the most well-known tools for mapping employee personalities. According to CPI, the test's publisher, 89 of the Fortune 100 companies use the MBTI before hiring a new employee. So the MBTI identifies if an employee's personality leans toward one of two tendencies in the following groupings: extroversion versus introversion, intuition versus sensing, thinking versus feeling, judging versus perceiving. So as a result, an individual can fall into one of 16 personality types, and the MBTI is often used by employers to decide if a candidate would be a good cultural fit for a company and if he or she could subsequently transition into working with the team nicely. So the SHL Occupational Personality Questionnaire, or OPQ32, is designed to give companies a picture of how certain behaviors influence a candidate's work performance. So the test is made up of 104 questions that measures 32 different characteristics. So they've got 3 main domains: relationship with people, thinking style and feelings, and emotions. So on the test, candidates are presented with 4 statements, and they must choose which statement best describes them and which statement least describes them. So there's also the Hogan Personality Inventory, the HPI, which was developed in the 1980s. It's now used to predict job performance. So it's been normed on more than 500,000 candidates worldwide and validated on more than 200 occupations, proving that it is a consistent and reliable tool used to evaluate an individual's temperament and how it matches the demands of a given role. So the HPI is based on the 5-factor model. It consists of 206 true-false questions that must be completed in around 15 to 20 minutes. So it evaluates 7 primary scales and 6 occupational scales. So service orientation, stress tolerance, reliability, clerical potential, sales potential, and managerial potential, in addition to possessing 42 subscales. It is administered online with an instantaneous score report. Finally is the DISC Behavior Inventory. So that measures a candidate's primary traits based on 4 personality types. The 4-style behavior model is the oldest style of personality test. It has been around since the time of Hippocrates, around 400 BC. So the profile comes in many versions, each of which includes a variation of the 4 basic DISC factors, so dominant, influential, steady, and compliant. So companies use this as a tool to help understand an employee's professional behavior style and his or her ability to work as part of a team. So in conclusion, being as prepared as possible as you go through the job application and interviewing process will help you feel more confident and less nervous. While, we certainly strive to provide as much information as possible, the job market is ever changing, as is the interviewing process. We always suggest to research your particular area as much as you can. Remember, although you may not be invited back or receive an offer of employment, each interview you go on is a learning tool for the next interview. So don't get discouraged. Your time will come, and remember, you got this.
Thank you for that great presentation. The Ohio Means Jobs Geauga County Career Center is available to provide you further assistance with things such as creating or updating your resume, cover letter, thank you letter writing, your LinkedIn profile, computer assistance, etc. Please feel free to reach out to us either by phone, email, or online, or by visiting the Career Center Monday through Friday from 8 to 3:30.